We begin this episode by acknowledging the Wurundjeri and Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation, the traditional custodians of the land on which we record and share these stories. We pay our deepest respects to their elders, past and present, and recognise the wisdom, connection, and culture that have shaped these lands for thousands of years. As we journey beyond the veil, we do so with gratitude, respect, and an awareness of those who walked before us, honouring their wisdom, their connection to the land, and their stories woven into the fabric of time. May we listen, learn, and tread lightly, carrying forward their legacy with integrity and heart. Welcome to Beyond the Veil Australia, where history, mystery, and the unexplained collide. From eerie encounters to cryptid lore, from channeled messages to scientific investigations, we're lifting the veil and stepping into the unknown. I'm Heather, your guide through the shadows, and together we'll unravel paranormal phenomena, strange synchronicities, and the mysteries that refuse to be ignored. Whether you're a skeptic, a seeker, or somewhere in between, this space is for you. Fasten your seatbelt, expand your thinking, and get ready to cross the threshold with Beyond the Veil Australia podcast. Throughout history, witchcraft has danced on the edge of the unknown, tied not only to spells and symbols, but to spirits, shadow, and the supernatural. Some say witches can summon the dead, manipulate energy, even bend reality itself. But how much of this is actually legend? And how much is real? In this final episode, we step beyond the myths into the paranormal side of witchcraft, where rituals become encounters, where magic stretches beyond the veil, and where the unseen begins to speak. Hello, everybody, and welcome to part 3 of Witch Please, the mysteries and the paranormal ties. So in part 1 and part 2, we looked at the craft and the origins, and we also looked at some history and some famous cases and even some folklore as well. We also got to see how there has been different portrayals of witches and witchcraft over millennia. Probably centuries, but millennia is more fun to say. And I know I say this with every episode, but the topics that are covered, they're so intersectional. There's so many layers to them. It's just so fascinating. And this is what I love doing this, not just for myself, but for other people that really enjoy learning about the paranormal as well. It's just something that keeps me. Yeah, so I hope that you've enjoyed the first 2 parts to the witchcraft topic, because I know I've had a lot of fun putting them together. But before I forget, otherwise it's literally, I'm going to forget, but I'm presenting Salem. Every episode that he sits in on, it's like if you're watching on YouTube, you will see him, but if you're only listening on like the Spotify platform, you obviously can't see. And I always forget to fucking introduce him. So he's just like my little fun little friend. And I think he's just one of those little weird, wacky elements that you kind of just throw in and just kind of make it fun. Like, you know, can you see Salem? Yep, there he is. But yeah, so he is joining me again on the podcast today, front and center. I've decided to trial a new headset, only because my like standalone mic is really strange with like it'll sort of pick up parts of my voice, and then other times it kind of like doesn't. So I was kind of like, do I try it one more time with that mic, or do I try the headset? So I thought I'd try the headset today, just to see how this goes. Yeah, because the standalone mic, as much as I love having that, it's just really hard sometimes to make sure that it's crisp and clear the whole way through. And I have noticed the last couple of episodes when going back through and editing that it's just kind of, it'll like pick up certain bits and then other bits it kind of just doesn't. So I think that's a sign that, you know, for a $15 mic from Officeworks, probably should invest in one that's a bit better quality. But being that this is a podcast that I don't make money from or anything like that, I'm not doing it for that. I'm just doing it because I love it. But I want that full listening experience for people. So having a shit quality mic that keeps dropping in and out is not really a great way. So wanted to trial the headset today and see how that goes. One part that I love about wearing the headset is that it's kind of everything's just all connected. I'm not worrying about if I'm too close or too far from the mic, particularly because that mic is a bit of a shitty quality one. It's a little bit hard to gauge that sometimes until you go back and edit. So the headset's good in that sense where it's predominantly consistent. I know this is another headset that I've got. My old headset was a little bit, most of the time it would be quite crisp and clear, but there would be the occasional time where it'd sort of have a bit of into and whatever. So I've got a slightly better quality headset. So we'll just see how that goes. But ideally I would prefer like a standalone mic, but we will get to that at some other point down the road. So yeah, let's hope that the quality is a little bit better for this episode. I've had a really busy couple of weeks with trying to get these episodes recorded. About a week ago, my husband had his appendix out, and which again, it's like anything, it just kind of was like a rapid onset. So that kind of set me back a little bit in being able to sort of play a bit of catch up. I generally tend to have, like, even before I actually started recording and before I even released the first episode, I'd gone through all of the topics in the most broadest way and had literally created the topics that I wanted to sort of talk about and kind of started drafting the structure of how I wanted the episodes and things like that. So I've got all of my topics pretty much ready to go. I do finesse and fine tune them sort of as I get closer to recording the episodes, just because sometimes I'll look at it and go, actually, you know what? I want to add a bit more of this in, or I want to take that out because that's irrelevant. So pretty much all of my topics are already done. I have been reaching out to a few people in regards to doing some interviews, and I've sent out a couple of emails to a few people and I actually got a response, and I'm really excited to have this person come on for an interview because I've been watching them on TikTok for a little while and they've recently moved across to YouTube, and I'm still playing a lot of catch up with YouTube and podcasts because I've just been so busy with just like reality that I'm sort of playing a lot of catch up with people's podcasts and YouTube channels. So I'm really excited to be able to have this person come on. I have had a couple of other people that I've reached out to, and I know there was somebody that I reached out to sort of way back when, which I've got to touch base with them again because I've been a bit slack and been a bit distracted with everything. So there are people that I've chatted with over the last couple of months that are interested in coming on, and it's just been playing so much catch up in between. I don't know if it's me, but I prefer to have my topics kind of have their 3 episodes together rather than staggering them and having bits and bobs in between. And I think that's just my personal preference. But I try to think about it like when I listen to a podcast, I'm just going to use one of my favorite podcasts. And it was actually the very first podcast that I ever listened to, but it was I Catch Killers with Gary Jublin. If you are an Aussie true crime person like myself, and you haven't listened to that, really, really great podcast. Gary Jublin was a detective with New South Wales Police for like 30 something years, and he actually worked on a pretty infamous case that's still currently unsolved, but he's now doing a podcast, and initially he started with interviewing former police officers, and over the seasons he's expanded into speaking to people that are victims of crime, people that have been involved with the justice system and had negative consequences from that and their redemptions and things like that. So it's a really, really great podcast and I just love it. But what I really noticed was that he did a lot of, for certain interviews, he would have part 1s and part 2s, and what I really liked was that if you finish part 1, you know that the next episode coming out was the part 2. And I'm just one of those people that as a listener, it's like, I don't want to like get invested in one that's a part 1 and then suddenly have a part 1 for someone else and then be like, oh fuck, now the part 2's out and I've got to go back and be like, what the fuck happened in part 1? Like for me, that's just the way that I find listening to the podcast. That's just what I like. So I don't know if everybody's like that, but I know for myself, and especially with my own podcast, I kind of think I like being able to have the one story or the one topic kind of back to back, so that you can kind of go, yep, I've listened to all of them. Awesome. Next, that's just that's just me. So I wanted to get the Witch Please series finished off, and then hopefully we'll have a couple of guest interviews over the next couple of episodes. So my initial plan was to try and do like a topic and then a co-host discussion and then an interview and then a topic, and kind of go that way. But it didn't quite work out that way, just purely because of life, sort of where it was at. It was just not going to work. So it was much easier to kind of go topic, couple of interviews, and then whatever comes next. So anyway, you're probably really tired of me rambling about my own bullshit, but to continue with Witch Please, this one we're going to be looking, as I sort of mentioned before, looking sort of at some of the spiritual connection side of witchcraft and sort of where it crosses over with paranormal themes, and there's a few little scientific things in there that I've really tried to look into to give it not just a spiritual lens. I kind of wanted to really bring in some of that scientific side of it too. Again, I know it's like there's a lot of us that are enthusiasts of the paranormal that kind of know, as a human being, when you try to think back to how we've survived and what different cultures experience and live through, and how we evolve and we've sort of disconnected from that, and we're more like, okay, well, there's a spiritual side that technically we can feel in our bodies, or it's a lot of those primal instincts. When you get that gut feeling like, fuck, I really shouldn't be here, or I feel like whatever, or like even that burnt toast theory where it's just like, oh, you're making toast and then suddenly it burns and you're like, for fuck's sake. And it's that, like, it's like on a certain level, your spirit or spirit guides or any kind of spiritual kind of guidance is sort of keeping you in a safer place because of something that may happen. Whereas the scientific side of it, it's like, well, yeah, we sort of know that, but we can't prove it. So now we need something that's going to align with visual or evidence that's collected through tools rather than just using ourselves as the tools. So I'm hoping that I've done that well for you guys in this episode. So let's just kick it off and let's see how we go. But the first segment is spirit summoning and shadow magic. Spirit summoning is one of the most enduring and unsettling threads in the tapestry of witchcraft. It's a practice that blurs the line between reverence and risk, between connection and confrontation. But what does it mean to call upon the dead? And what answers might they offer if they choose to answer at all? From ancient tombs to candlelit parlours, the desire to speak with the departed has echoed through time, sometimes to seek wisdom, sometimes to find peace, and sometimes to wield power. In the necromentations of ancient Greece, practitioners descended into underground chambers, offering blood, chanting incantations, and invoking Hades himself. These rites weren't casual. They were feared, sacred, and often forbidden. Accusations of spirit summoning were used to condemn witches, especially women, who spoke to the dead or kept ancestral altars. Was it hearsay or misunderstood grief? In the 19th century, we saw a surge in seances, table tipping, and spirit photography. Mediums claimed to channel voices from beyond, while skeptics accused them of trickery. Yet even today, some of those recordings and photographs remain unexplained. Spirit communication now often centres on ancestral healing, using tarot, pendulums, and trance states to connect with lineage and lost voices. It's less about spectacle and more about sacred listening. Imagine sitting in silence, candle flickering, air thick with incense. You speak a name, and the room shifts. Is it memory? Is it energy? Or is someone listening? Familiars are more than pets. They're said to be spiritual allies, beings that walk between worlds, guiding, protecting, and sometimes warning. In early modern Europe, witches were accused of keeping imps or demon spirits in animal form. These familiars were believed to whisper secrets, steal energy, or even enact curses. But in many traditions, there were simply helpers, and they were seen as guardians of sacred space. Witches are often described as sensitive to energy, able to feel shifts in mood, space, and intention. Some use sigils, crystals, or breathwork to redirect energy. Others claim to sense thin places where the veil between worlds wears thin. And shadow magic? This isn't dark magic, it's deep magic. Shadow work involves facing the hidden parts of the self, the forgotten spirits, and the unspoken truths. It's not about control, it's about communion. The Whisper in the Corner, a folklore tale from the Appalachian woods. In the deep folds of the Appalachian forest, where mist clings to the trees and silence speaks louder than sound, there's a story that's been told for generations. It's not written in books. It's passed down from mouth to ear, around fires and under breath. A tale of summoning, shadows, and the kind of magic that doesn't ask for permission. Maeve Holloway's Midnight Ritual. They say she lived alone in a cabin tucked deep in the Appalachian woods. Her name was Maeve Holloway, a quiet woman, known for her herbal remedies and the way her cat never left her side. One winter night, she performed a ritual to speak with her grandmother, gone 20 years but never forgotten. She lit a candle, placed a silver coin beneath it, and whispered the name. The flame flickered. The air grew still. Her cat, usually restless, froze, eyes locked onto the far corner of the room. Maeve turned. There was nothing there, but the candle bent toward the shadow, and in the silence she heard a voice, soft, familiar. Child, you called. She never spoke of it again, but those who visited her cabin said the air always felt watched. And the cat, it still stared into the corners. Can belief alone summon a spirit? Are familiars real, or reflections of our own intuition? What happens when we invite the unknown and it answers? Whoa, that one's a little bit rich on the goosebumps. Woo. Yeah, cool folklore, and the fact that it supposedly happened in the Appalachian Mountains and forests, kind of creepy. I don't know a lot about necessarily the Native American history of the Appalachian Mountains, but I have seen lots of different things on social media and YouTube where they're sort of touching on some of the eeriness and the folklore around the Appalachian forests. And yeah, it's creepy that this particular thing happened. The first thing that comes to my mind is, we kind of talked about it in episode 2, where it's sort of like you can do all the right things, but are you actually connecting with the true spirit or energy that you're wanting to connect with? Because we know that there are particular creatures or beings in Native American lore that can shapeshift and take form of others. And so it's a little bit Ooh, a little bit creepy. But yeah, let me know what you think about that. And if you have any knowledge or further knowledge about the Appalachian forests and mountains, please hit me up on social media or leave a comment in either YouTube or Spotify, whatever you're listening or viewing on, and just let me know, because I'd be really curious to deep dive into that and learn a bit more about it, because it's a really fascinating spiritual lore or folklore with these shape-shifting beings. So yeah, curious to touch more on that. But we are going to move into segment 2 now. And this is Echoes of the Unfinished and the Ritual that Continues to Repeat. So I'm really looking forward to sort of seeing what we think about residual energy in this particular segment. Some rituals are never truly over, whether broken mid-chant or repeated across generations. They leave behind more than memory. They leave echoes of energy, of intent, of something waiting. Residual magic and lingering spirits. Let's begin with the idea of unfinished magic. In many traditions, a ritual must be closed properly, so circles sealed, offerings accepted, and energy grounded. When that doesn't happen, the spell doesn't just fail, it lingers. And sometimes it attracts more than what it was meant to. Another folklore tale, the knock that broke the spell. In a village near the Black Forest, Lottie prepared a ritual to speak with her late sister. She drew the circle, lit the candles, and began the chant. Then, a knock at the door. She paused. The wind continued to howl. The candles miraculously went out. She never finished the ritual. But from that night on, her home changed. Footsteps in the attic, mirrors fogging without cause, her sister's name etched into the frost. Was it her sister's spirit, half summoned and unable to leave? Or had the broken ritual opened a door to something else that stepped through? In folk magic, rituals are often seen as energetic circuits, closed systems designed to raise, direct, and release power. When a ritual is interrupted or abandoned, that circuit remains open, creating a kind of energetic leak. Unresolved energy acts like a beacon, drawing in entities seeking form or attention. The practitioner's emotional state, so grief, fear, or longing, can become magnified, affecting both the space and the psyche. Sensitivity increases, nightmares, intrusive thoughts, and even auditory hallucinations may occur. In Appalachian lore, an open circle is said to sing, a low hum heard only by those attuned to spirit. Eastern European traditions warn that unfinished rites can call the wrong name, summoning spirits not meant to answer. Spiritual static and energetic interference. So the concept of spiritual static refers to the dissonance created when ritual energy is left unresolved. It's not a haunting in the traditional sense. It's more like a fog, a tension, a hum beneath the surface. So things like this can happen in terms of manifestations and environmental shifts. So things like cold spots, flickering lights, and where objects move subtly. Emotional unrest and physical symptoms include irritability, sadness, or anxiety with no clear source, also including fatigue, dizziness, or just that feeling of off in a specific space. In Slavic folk magic, unfinished spells are said to cling to the bones, causing aches or heaviness until released. In hoodoo and root work, practitioners may bury ritual remnants to ground the energy and prevent the lingering effects. While some believe unfinished energy can never fully be resolved, many traditions offer methods to seal or cleanse the space after the fact. So common tools and techniques used: salt, used to purify and seal. So this would be sprinkled around the space or added to water for cleansing. Iron, a protective metal believed to repel spirits and ground energy. Fire, symbolic of transformation, so burning remnants or lighting a candle to complete the ritual. Sound, bells, chimes, or even singing bowls to disrupt the lingering energy and reset the space. Burial rites, so burying ritual tools, written intentions, or offerings to return the energy to the earth. Modern adaptations include visualization techniques to close the circle in memory, journaling the unfinished ritual and burning the page as a symbolic release, and guided meditations to reclaim and redirect any lingering energy. The ritual that continues to repeat. So now let's shift into a different kind of haunting. One that not tied to interruption, but repetition. There are places where rituals echo through time, where the same spell is heard year after year, though no one is there to cast it. Another folklore tale, the solaced spell of Hollowmere. In Hollowmere Glen, villagers hear chanting every winter solstice. Always the same rhythm, always the same voice. It began with a coven that vanished mid-ritual. Now, each year, the chant returns. Some say it's a haunting. Others believe the ritual is caught in a loop, time folding in on itself, continuing to replay the moment that magic went wrong. One girl claimed she saw the coven, frozen in time, mouths moving and eyes blank. She ran, but her dreams still carry the chant. Is it residual energy, a time slip, or a ritual so powerful it imprinted itself on the land? In paranormal theory, time loops are often linked to moments of intense energy, rituals, trauma, or emotional upheaval. These events are believed to leave imprints on the environment, creating temporal echoes that replay under specific conditions. So some of the key concept: energetic saturation. When a space is charged with emotion or magic, it may actually record the moment like a psychic imprint. Some of the trigger points would be solstices, anniversaries, or even environmental shifts that may activate this loop, such as ley lines. Non-linear replay. The event doesn't necessarily follow time. It just replays as if it's happening now, often without awareness of the observer. Some of the folklore parallels. In Celtic lore, thin places are said to allow time to fold. Rituals performed there may echo across centuries. In Japanese ghost stories, spirits repeat their final acts endlessly, trapped in an emotional residue. Residual hauntings. So are these psychic recordings in place? Paranormal researchers use the term residual haunting to describe phenomena that replay without interaction. Unlike intelligent hauntings, these are non-conscious echoes, like a film loop embedded in the space. Some of the signs of residual hauntings are repetition, so the same sounds, movements, or even apparitions at predictable times. A lack of awareness. The ghost or spirit doesn't respond. It's not actually aware of the living. Environmental triggers, so things like temperature shifts, moon phases, or even ritual anniversaries may intensify this replay. The magical interpretation of this. Some believe these hauntings are a result of rituals performed with unresolved intent, energy that never found its target. Others see them as warnings, echoes meant to be witnessed but not interacted with. In magical theory, certain rituals are believed to bend or fracture the time, especially when performed at liminal moments, so where there's thresholds between the worlds. Liminal timing, such as solstices and equinoxes, so points of cosmic balance, often used for ancestral or transformative rites. Eclipses associated with shadow work, revelation, or even hidden truths. Threshold spaces, so things like doorways, crossroads, and graveyards, are places where boundaries blur. Ritual memory, the idea that places remember what was done there. A ritual performed with strong intent may leave a psychic blueprint, causing future visitors to feel or hear or even reenact the original spell. In some traditions, this memory is seen as sacred, whereas others may view it as dangerous. In Norse myth, certain stones are said to sing the names of those who performed the rites nearby. In hoodoo, crossroads rituals are believed to echo through time, especially if the offering was actually rejected. So, have you ever felt like you were walking through someone else's memory? What ritual would you repeat if time allowed? And do you believe that places remember us? But let's not forget the human side. Unfinished rituals often stem from grief, fear, or even hesitation. And these emotions don't just vanish, they echo. They shape the energy around them. They even shape the haunting. So have you ever felt stuck in a moment, like something you meant to say, but it never left your mouth? That's residual magic too. And maybe, just maybe, it's waiting to be released. Wow, that one was really cool. I liked that, we got to kind of get this really good mix of some of the folklore and ancient sort of lore crossing over with paranormal theories and kind of seeing where they intersect. And it's really kind of cool because I think we're also learning that ancient cultures around the world, like certain ceremonies that would be conducted are those sacred rituals, those rites of passage that are passed down through oral storytelling, not so much through recorded or documented stories. So it's kind of cool to see just a lot of that intersection between the witchcraft side of it and where it kind of intersects with ancient cultures as well. And is that maybe where witchcraft has sort of become known as what it is? Is it realistically a combination of different cultures around the world, even going way back through ancient civilizations, that as those civilizations have ceased to exist, parts of those cultures are being remembered and resurrected through the very little folklore and documented information that we've got on it, and now it's sort of being rebirthed, and we can correlate that to some form of scientific understanding, such as residual energies and residual hauntings, and the way that they can be triggered not just by a certain thing like a house, or anything like that. And that's, I suppose, where you could kind of go into stone tape theory. But are they triggered by different cycles of the moon? Are they triggered by equinoxes and solstices? Like it's just if we really do a bit of homework on ancient cultures and what we can find on them about when certain ceremonies were conducted, I think little bits that I've been able to kind of dig up have kind of always pointed to particular celestial or earth like natural occurring events that represent something. We also look with things like Halloween or Samhain, as it's actually supposed to be known as, in my understanding, but that's something that occurs. And then you've got the other side of that, the polar opposite end of that, which now, for the love of God, I cannot fucking remember what it is. But, there's certain times of year, so certain rituals are undertaken at certain times of years. But what if witchcraft is just helping people remember, their history of what their culture was or where part of their ancestors have come from? It's just a question that's sort of like in my brain a lot of the time. So it's interesting how we're seeing a bit more of that paranormal research being sort of able to kind of understand and maybe even start to document things like that, where we've got residual energy happening. It's not to say that we don't have energy that is intelligent, but you think about even what we class as haunted locations, like there might only be one or two intelligent entities there, but there's so much more activity going on because it's a residual kind of a thing. And what if you've got investigators going through, so just say it's something like, I'm just going to use Beechworth Asylum just as an example. It's not to say that there's not just one intelligent entity there, but as an example, you might only have a handful or very few that are intelligent energies there, but you've got the history of what's occurred there, and depending on certain things like the trauma that's experienced, or whenever these experiences happened, what if they happened on a full moon? What if they happened at an equinox? What if they happened at, crucial times of cultural ceremonial practice, that has then left that imprint? And when you have multiple people coming through on many different occasions that all have their own individual beliefs and energies and cultural identities, that there's going to be certain energy that then amplifies when someone goes in there. So, for example, I don't really know about my heritage that much at the moment. That's still a work in progress. But for example, if I was of First Nations heritage, if I was to go to, say, Beechworth, what's not to say that if I went there at a certain point of time where there was a certain ceremony that would be practiced, and it's at that time where that occurs, and I'm coming in and say I've got First Nations heritage, and what if I end up connecting with the First Nations residual or ceremony there and actually picking up that energy through my investigation, whereas the next person that comes along could have, let's just say, Irish heritage, and they're going in there at a different point in time or a different time where there might be a particular ceremony that's experienced or something like that, and then their energy then triggers that residual energy of the cultural practice. That what's not to say that that's what happens. I never thought of it like that until very, very recently, and the reason I've started thinking about that more is because one of my friends does TikTok lives in local areas to his home, and his home does have haunted objects in it. And occasionally he'll go out to the cemetery, and they've got a particular type of factory that was there, and it was really weird. Before he'd even gone and done a live there, we were chatting about this particular factory, like just kind of briefly in between different bits and pieces, and I actually had moments where I actually started to feel myself tune in, and I could be outside just kind of going, I'm just grounding myself, and I would be tuning in, and I heard several names that I understood to be connected to this place. I didn't know any of these names. I'm going to put that out there as a full disclosure. I had no idea of these names, but I heard them, and I remember hearing a particular nickname of one of these names, and I'd got some information, and I thought, okay, I could just be losing my brain, or I'm actually somehow miraculously remotely tuning in and picking up this information. Anyway, it was probably about 3 weeks later, and we had chatted on and off, and I had actually said, I've had some information come through. I'll be curious to see if I get an opportunity to go out to this place with you and just see if what I'd received remotely is actually, somewhat legit. As somebody who can connect, I can be very skeptical of myself. Anyway, so he was doing a live, and I've never seen this place before, right? I've never seen it. But when he was talking about it, I had this visual imprint of what I could only imagine that it looked like. That was what I thought it looked like. He was doing this live, and suddenly he pans around, and boom, there's this building. And I nearly fell off my chair and was like, that's what I saw. And I said, those set of stairs, they look really familiar. And I thought, I'm not going to say it in the middle of the live. I'll talk to him about it tomorrow. And so I'm watching it, and I was like, fucking hell, that exact angle that he's shooting that is what I saw in my head. I've never seen this building before. I didn't even really knew it existed in my local area until he started talking about it. And I thought, fuck, this is weird. Anyway, 20 minutes goes by, and there were certain names that came up, and I'm just like, oh my fucking God. And he was able to clarify these particular names and who they were and how they were connected to it. And I then suddenly just got out of the TikTok live, and I just went, holy fucking shit. That is the information that was given to me about 3 weeks ago when I was outside, somehow remotely tuning into this place. What the actual fuck? I was almost in a sense of meltdown mode of oh my God, when Homer does that, oh my God, that weird jumpy thing. And I was like, holy fuck, man, I didn't think that I was able to do that. I kind of can pick up on things, but I had no fucking idea that I could do that. And I was like, oh my God. And so I actually messaged him, about 10 minutes later, and just said, hey, had to jump out of the live. I'll talk to you about it tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. It's it's to do with your live. And he's like, oh yeah, no worries. And so we were chatting about it, and I just said, you won't fucking believe it, and went X, Y, Z, whatever. And he was just like, holy shit, man. And I was like, this is just getting fucking weird, because there were certain things that he said, there were certain energies that were supposedly present when he was doing his live. There was confirmation in some of the equipment, and I'm just like, oh my fucking God. Not only was that moment where he panned on that building the moment that I was like, I've seen this, and I haven't seen a photo of it. I've visually had this come to me, and it was just fucking creepy. So in a good way, creepy in a good way, I'm going to say that much. But it's just interesting where we talk about residual stuff, and it's not to say that there is an intelligent energy there, but what's not to say that I've got one intelligent spirit that had come to me and told me certain information, because there's a connection between them and I, and it's to do with their name. Anyway, just little things like that. Or have we come from similar heritage? There's those sorts of things where it's kind of like, ooh, is this, how we can connect with energy? Do we connect with energy that we've previously connected with before, that our ancestors have connected with? How does all of that work? And I feel like witchcraft is as a whole, a topic, something that highlights our ability to remember and to do that. And now that we've got more equipment that can somewhat support that, there's enough there where it's kind of like, it could be a coincidence, but there's too many things for it to be just a coincidence, right? So yeah, I kind of went on a bit of a tangent and a bit of a ramble there, but it was kind of something fun that I had to tell you, because it was just like, holy shit, I forgot about that. That actually fits in with this. But again, it's just the same with paranormal locations. What's not to say that I'm going to connect with a particular type of energy, and someone that might be with me will connect with something else. And depending on what our belief systems are, does that then depend on who we connect with and what residual energy we can trigger to occur? So yeah, kind of went on a bit of a tangent. Sorry about that. I just kind of got stuck in my train of thought and just kind of went there. But the good news is we're now up to segment 3, which is, again, we're looking at that science and the supernatural. Without further ado, let's keep going. Science and magic have long been at odds, one seeking logic, the other embracing mystery. But could there be an intersection between the two? Could energy manipulation actually explain supernatural events? Some researchers believe that what we call magic is simply energy manipulation, so an unseen force that interacts with the world around us. But can this explain hauntings, curses, and supernatural encounters? So some of the scientific theories, so things like the electromagnetic fields. So this is paranormal activity that often coincides with EMF fluctuations. Some believe that spirits or rituals can actually alter these fields, creating sensory anomalies. The quantum entanglement, so the idea that consciousness may influence reality, suggesting that intention, focus, and ritual could ripple through space-time. And of course, the psychological influence. Belief shapes perception. Expectation can manifest experience. Could magic be actually a form of focused psychological projection? So, interesting, a couple of little things there with the scientific. So we're now going to go just maybe a little bit deeper with some of these. So the electromagnetic fields. So these are invisible waves of energy generated by electrically charged objects from power lines to the human body itself. Paranormal investigators often report EMF fluctuations in haunted locations, interpreting spikes as a sign of spiritual presence or ritual energy. Some of the sensory anomalies like apparitions, chills, or even auditory hallucinations have actually been linked to EMF exposure. Some researchers suggest that spirits may manipulate EMFs to manifest or communicate. Others argue that high EMF levels affect the brain directly, causing dizziness, paranoia, or hallucinations that mimic supernatural encounters. Historical experiments have tried even to detect electromagnetic surges from mediums during their seances. So, is it a ghost or a neurological response to an invisible energy? Quantum entanglement, so consciousness as a cosmic thread. Quantum entanglement describes how particles remain mysteriously linked, so that a change in one instantly affects the other, regardless of the distance. It's been called spooky action at a distance, and some theorists wonder if consciousness itself might operate on similar principles. So, entangled photons in neurons may help synchronize brain activity, hinting at quantum processes in consciousness. The Penrose-Hameroff model suggests that microstructures in neurons could actually act as quantum computers, shaping thought and awareness. Entanglement has also been explored metaphorically to explain empathy, intuition, and synchronicity in human relationships. If intention can ripple through space-time, rituals may be more than symbolic. They may actually be quantum interactions. Could your focused thought be entangled with something or someone beyond the veil? The psychological influence, so belief as a lens on reality. Our beliefs don't just reflect reality, they shape it. Psychological research shows that expectation, conditioning, and bias can actually alter perception, creating experiences that feel supernatural. There's also confirmation bias, which leads us to notice what we expect, So if we believe a space is haunted, we're more likely than not to interpret creaks and shadows as ghostly activity. Our core beliefs, they're often formed in childhood and act like filters, colouring how we interpret sensory input and emotional cues. Cognitive dissonance, an emotional reinforcement that helps maintain these beliefs, even if the face of contradictory evidence arises. In some cases, belief itself may act as a kind of psychological ritual, projecting meaning onto the unknown. So, is magic real, or is reality shaped by magic we believe in? So, if magic is energy, measurable, manipulable, and deeply personal, then what does it mean for the stories that we tell? We've seen how EMF spikes, quantum entanglement, and psychological projection offer frameworks for the paranormal. But frameworks don't always capture feeling. Have you ever walked into a room and felt something shift? Not in fear and not cold, just presence. The candle flickers, though the air is still. A whisper of like a static hum is beneath the silence. Somewhere a meter ticks. Somewhere else a physicist dreams. And here, in this moment, intention becomes ritual. Maybe magic isn't the opposite of science. Maybe it's the part we haven't measured yet. Because sometimes the most powerful evidence isn't found in data. It's felt in the dark. Witchcraft as an intersection of magic, so the psychology and the unknown. Witchcraft is more than spells. It is intention, energy, and belief. But does belief create reality? Or does reality shape belief? So some of the key themes that we're going to explore in this part is things like the placebo effect. So rituals may work, but not because of external forces, but because belief activates internal change. The subconscious mind. Magic may tap into deep psychological layers, so symbols, archetypes, and emotional truths. And of course, the unknown. Science is still unfolding. Are we dismissing forces we haven't yet learned to measure? So the placebo effect, belief as biochemical spellwork. The placebo effect reveals that belief alone can trigger real psychological change. Sugar pills relieve pain. Sham surgeries improve mobility. The body responds not to the substance, but to the story. Expectation releases neurotransmitters like dopamine and endorphins, easing pain and elevating mood. Conditioning, so past healing experiences, can train the body to respond to ritual, even when the ritual lacks pharmacological power. The cultural context shapes the placebo response. So in some traditions, healing rituals are more effective because they align deeply with held beliefs. Witchcraft then may actually be a form of intentional placebo, a ritualized activation of the body's own healing systems. So is the spell in the herbs, or is it in the belief that they'll work? The subconscious mind, magic as symbolic dialogue. Magic speaks in symbols, but so does the subconscious. Jungian psychology suggests that rituals, archetypes, and myths are ways of accessing the deep layers of the psyche. Symbols that bridge the conscious and the unconscious, offering emotional truths that logic can't reach. Archetypes like the crone, the hero, or the shadow appear in dreams, folklore, and ritual, guiding us through transformation. Individualization. So Jung's term for psychological wholeness often involves confronting symbolic material just as magical practice does. Ritual may be a form of active imagination, allowing the practitioner to engage with the inner truths through external action. So, is magic a way to change the world or to change the self? And of course, the unknown, science as a candle in the fog. Science is not static. It's a process of unfolding. What we dismiss today may be tomorrow's breakthrough. Theories of a fifth force, dark matter, and quantum consciousness suggest that reality is far stranger than we know. CERN experiments hint at particles behaving outside known laws, suggesting that forces we haven't even named yet. Muon anomalies, quantum irregularities challenge the standard model, opening doors to new dimensions of understanding. Witchcraft, with its reverence for mystery, may be engaging with forces that science hasn't yet learned to measure. So is the unknown a void or a frontier? In folklore traditions, rituals often mirror psychological healing, naming grief, releasing fear, and invoking protection. In Jungian psychology, magic is seen as symbolic language, and it is a way to engage with the unconscious mind. Across cultures, rituals have long mirrored the psychological healing. So this would be things like grief rituals that help regulate emotion, offering structure and meaning in chaos. Protective charms and cleansing rites often reflect subconscious needs for safety and control. And the Jungian psychology sees magic as the symbolic language, a way to engage the unconscious and to move forward to integration. So then folklore must not just be that it's primitive, it's poetic psychology. Some magic is psychology, but others argue that it's something far older, far deeper. But what if it's both? We've explored how belief can shape biology, how symbols speak to the subconscious, and how science still stumbles in the dark. Some say that magic is just psychology, ritual as a placebo, and archetype as therapy. Others believe it's something older, something deeper, a force that predates language and lingers in the bones of folklore. But maybe it's not about choosing sides. Maybe it's about asking better questions. What if hauntings are energetic imprints? What if spells are focused on intention? And what if the supernatural is simply natural but not yet understood? Maybe magic is the moment belief meets mystery, the place where intention becomes transformation. Whether it's neurons firing or spirits whispering, something shifts. And in that shift, we find meaning. So let me ask you, have you ever experienced something you couldn't explain, but it felt deeply real? Do you believe your thoughts can shape your reality? And is magic just science we haven't named yet? Across the 3 episodes of Witch Please, we've traced and tangled the threads of history, myth, and mystery. In episode 1, The Craft and Origins, we step back in time before the burnings and before the fear to uncover the sacred roots of witchcraft. From moonlit rites to clay-etched spells, we explored how the craft began as reverence, rebellion, and ritual. In episode 2, The Legends and the Fear, that took us into the shadows where witches became warnings, scapegoats, and symbols of the unknown. We examined how fear shaped folklore and how the stories of power and punishment still echo in the cultural imagination. And episode 3, The Mystery and Paranormal Ties, we also asked, what if magic is measurable? What if belief shapes biology? And rituals that ripple through space-time. We explored the EMFs, the quantum entanglement, and of course, the subconscious mind, bridging the divide between the mystical and the scientific. Together, these episodes formed a spell of sorts, a layered invocation of curiosity, history, and possibility. But the journey doesn't end here. Next time, we step into the field with our very first In the Spotlight guest interview. Monique and Anthony from Date Night with the Ghost Gang join me to share what it's like to explore the unexplained together. From haunted locations to heart-to-heart revelations, they bring curiosity, connection, and a whole lot of ghostly charm. So whether you're a skeptic, a seeker, or somewhere in between, stay curious, because the unseen isn't just out there. Sometimes it's waiting in the questions that we haven't asked yet. And before we close this chapter, I invite you to listen to something captured in the dark. Monique and Anthony were there. The equipment was running, and what followed wasn't expected. I'm now going to leave you with a little clip from Date Night with the Ghost Gang, just to get you fired up for when the interview occurs. Thank you all again for joining in with me today, whether you were watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify. You are all amazing. Thank you so much for following. And yeah, I can't wait to see you next time. Bye.
A fatal mistake. 5 months into his freedom, he'd reoffended, this time adding murder to his crimes.
Comic book killer Leonard Lawson shot dead 15-year-old student during a hostage situation.
I've never seen a Red Pod do that before.
Yeah.
Please. Is this where you were shot? Is this where the fight happened? I got goosebumps everywhere. Are you sick of being known as the girl that was shot at school? Is that a yes?
Oh wow. Wow. You know what, Jace? This is your confirmation of what you're saying is coming true.